This is Gemara Yoma Daf Pei is a learning should be as close for Shem of many of them Vega Chaim and Sar Shalom Sivam and Easy those are Baskinendel Ita Basi and Baschei so you saw Mamendel the President Shalei Shamas no Mim Shef Figure Shirchan of Shmo Ben Tila Tnil Ben Khan Rizum Chaim Sin Libracha but so Musa Din Ina Bachin Mindel Svim and Figure Vernon Bichel Sumra Seluva Rivko Baba Shan Naftal Svim Vegel Esther Itel Bas Naftal Svim Esther Besayshar Choli Yisrael as well as Choshirach for Yisrael Chaim and Devaira and Nataleya Bas Ita. Hopefully we have a little bit of a different mic set up. We'll take care of a little bit of the echo. Thank you all for bearing with me. Let's pick it up on the bottom of Pei Aleph Amid Beis. We ran through these last 4 lines. Let's see it once again. We said in the Mishnah that Shasa Seer or Murius, that if someone drinks Seer, fish brine, or Murius or fish fats, Patri is Patri and Yom Kippur. Of course, again, as we mentioned many times, it is forbidden and is Aser, but there is no Chiyav Kari, says the Gemara. The obvious implication of the Mishnah is al chaymet, but if you drink vinegar, chayiv, then you're going to be chayiv. Says the Gemara, what is this opinion that holds that drinking vinegar is considered of food? Masizan mani Rebbe. It sounds like the opinion of Rebbe. The Tani learned in the Brayse of Rebbe Omer. Says Rebbe one more time. Says Rebbe 4 lines to the bottom. Chaymet meishiv es hanefesh. Chaymet, vinegar restores the soul. It sounds like vinegar is something that can quench your thirst. So says the Gemara, that's seemingly who our Mishnah is working with. Darshav Gidol Bar Menashe Meibiri Dinarosh Ein Halacha Kerebi. He argues and he says, no, we do not paskin like Rebbe. L'shan and Afki Kuli Amo Mazgu B'Shasu Chalo. The next year, they heard that we don't paskin like Rebbe, so everyone went out and mixed water and vinegar and drank such a vinegar type of drink in Yom Kippur. Shama Rav Gidol heard, and he said, and he was quite upset about this story. He said, "What are you doing, Omar?" He said, "Emer da Amriano di'eved." What did I say? I meant do di'eved. If you did it, then that's one level. Lichatchila mi Omar. Did I ever tell you that lichatchila you could go and eat this fish broth? Excuse me. Lichatchila go, you can eat this vinegar. Similarly, what did I say? A little bit. Tuva mi Omar. Did I say you could go guzzle down this vinegar? As well, I was only referring to fresh, undiluted vinegar. Mazlig mi Amri. I never was referring to diluted vinegar, as that's obviously more of a drink. And says the Gemara of Gidol was quite upset with the story. We turn over to today's Daf, Pei Beis Amud Aleph, a new Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, quite a famous Mishnah, continuing the halachas of Yom Kippur itself. Who has to fast we talk about right now? Says the Mishnah, Hatinoikis ein ma'ananois of Yom Kippurim. Hatinoikis, children, particularly in the female sense, we'll see about males as well, do not fast in Yom Kippur. Avol, however, a famous line, we do have a din of chinuch, we do have to train children, like all dinei of chinuch, lifnei shah, a year before, and 2 years before. Why? So that they're ruggles, they're used to the fast. So first of all, let's just point out that lifnei shah, v'lifnei shnatayim, that doesn't mean a year or 2 earlier, as Rashi here in the Gemara is going to explain, that means 2 or 3 years earlier, for the simple reason of lifnei shah, v'lifnei shnatayim, before a year, before 2 years. That is din number 1. And we're going to see in the Gemara just to mention that there's many Mefarshim here that deal with the basic chiyuv and obligation of chiyuv, of chinuch, a lot of big rayas that come from our Gemara. Let's begin. Says the Gemara. First, we start with the obvious question, as we always have. Whenever we list 2 different quantities, it's always difficult. If you said one, why do you have to say the other? Says the Gemara, if for 2 years you have to do chinuch before, prior to bar mitzvah, seemingly from age of 10 or 11, but if they shana mi bai, you have to say the same thing for 1 year. That's repetitive, of course. So says Rav Chisda, no. One is talking about a chayla, a sick child. You let him prepare for 1 year prior. Habibari, one is talking about a healthy child. The healthy child prepares for 2 years prior. Okay, din number 1 of Rav Chisda. Says the Gemara, let's a few opinions about fasting, training children before Yom Kippur, and then we'll tie it back to our Mishnah. Says the Gemara 5 lines into Pei Beis Amud Aleph Amar Rav Huna. Ben Ches Ben Taz Ben Chan Chan Yisal Lefnei Shais. An 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, you got to train him for hours to fast for part of Yom Kippur. Ben Yud Ben Yud Aleph, a 10, 11-year-old, mashlim him midrabanan. The din derabanan to have a full fast. Ben Yud Beis mashlim midaraisa. Bitinoikes, obviously referring to a girl, because we're talking about the age of 12 when a girl is obligated in all mitzvahs. So says Rav Huna again, 8 and 9 chinuch, 10 and 11 complete derabanan, 12 de'oraisa for a girl. Rav Nachman Amar, Rav Nachman is not arguing, Rav Nachman is in the same camp as Rav Huna. Just Rav Nachman applies it to boys. Rav Nachman Amar, Ben Tez, Ben Yod, Mechanchen L'Shais. Of course, Rav Nachman is going to bump everyone up a year, because we're talking about boys. A 9-year-old, a 10-year-old has to fast for hours. Ben Yud, Ben Yabez, 11 or 12 Yod, Mashlim Derabanan. They have a din of hashlama, din derabanan, an obligation to complete the fast. Ben Yud Gimel Mashlima Midaraisa. A 13-year-old has to complete Midaraisa Bitinik. So again, Rav Huna and Rav Nachman are both in the same camp over here. Seemingly they're learning that there's 2 stages. There's a stage where, I should say 3 stages really. There's a stage, a Chiyav Daraisa, 13 for boy, 12 for girl. There's a stage where they're calling hashlama Midrabanan, which is 11, 12 boy, 10, 11 girl. And then there's the stage of Shais, you have to fast for part of the day, which is going to be 10, 11 boy, 8, 9 girl. Which, of course, this really translates into the din of the Mishnah, as we'll see in a moment. Shana Shanatayim, let's let the Gemara develop and explain itself. Rav Yochanan Amar, but now Rav Yochanan argues. Says Rav Yochanan, Hashlama dirabanan laka. There's no such din. That whole middle level, we had a level of Shais, we have a level of Daraisa. What was that middle level? That middle level that Rav Huna said by a girl is 10 or 11. Rav Nachman said by a boy is 11 or 12. The level which they said was a din dirabanan to complete the fast. Says Rav Nachman Yochanan, it does not exist. Hashlama dirabanan laka. And therefore, Ben Yud, Ben Yud Mechanchen L'Shais, Ben Yud Beis Mashlim Midaraisa, of course, referring to a girl. So Rav Yochanan cuts out that middle level. So Machlokes Rav Huna, Rav Nachman say there's a middle level of chinuch of Hashlama, I should call it completely derabanan. Rav Yochanan disagrees, gets rid of that level entirely. Tanan, so says the Gemara, a question on Rav Yochanan from our Mishnah. Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah, Hati noikes ein ma'ani noisav yom kippurim. Girls do not fast in Yom Kippur. Avol mechanchen noisav lefnei shana lefnei shnatayim. But we have a din of chinuch for 1 or 2 years prior. Bishlama, says the Gemara, like we pointed out. Bishlam, Rav Huna, Rav Nachman. According to Rav Huna and Rav Nachman, now there's a bit of a difficulty over here in the Girsai, so let's try to hold on together. Bishlam, Rav Huna, Rav Nachman, Lifnei Shana. That what does it mean? Lifnei Shana. Now over here we put in the word Lidivrehem. That Lifnei Shana is a din dirabanan. Lifnei Shana, I should say better. Bishlam, Rav Huna, Rav Nachman, Lifnei Shana, Lifnei Shnatayim. 1 or 2 years. Now the Gemara explains. Lifnei shana lidivreim. What does it mean 1 year? That's a din dirabanan, which means lifnei shana. Like we pointed out, we read the Mishnah. A year early, which means 2 years. Which means in a din dirabanan, there's a din hashlama, there's a din to complete it 2 years prior. Which is what we saw according to Rav Huna and Rav Nachman, each into their own shita, boy, girl, 10, 11, 11, 12. Lifnei shnatayim, and when it said 2 years, what is that? This is the word that causes difficulty over here. If you see this little aleph that points right over here to the Bach, and the Bach points out it's Ledivrei Torah, not Ledivreim, but rather Ledivrei Torah. So let's read it with the Bach. It's a little bit easier. Lifnei shnatayim, Ledivrei Torah. 2 years beforehand, which is a din daraisa, which lifnei shnatayim, before 2 years, referring to 3 years. That is the din daraisa. So according to basically Rav Huna and Rav Nachman, it's very simple. They had 3 different levels. They went all the way back 3-4 years prior, which in the Mishnah, Shana Shnatayim, which of course means lifnei, before the 3 or 4 years, the 2 or 3 years, however you want to do the math. And says the Gemara, everything's fine. El Rav Nachman, 2 lines before the white lines, Kasha. According to Rav Nachman, there's no din hashlama, there's no din completing on a Darvana level. So we're up the creek. I'm the Rav Yochanan. I'm sorry. I'm the Rav Yochanan. My shana shnatayim. What do the words lefnei shana lefnei shnatayim in the Mishnah mean? Le pirkon. What that means is close to them becoming an adult. It means as we're getting close to that, we'll call it D-Day, 12 years or 13 years, and that's how Rav Yochanan is going to have to retranslate the Mishnah. Before we continue, this is the hard part of today's daf. Let's see one Rashi. Rashi over here towards the bottom of the narrow lines. El Rav Yochanan Kasha. Let's read that Rashi together. L'didei loy mitokma masnisin klal. According to Rav Yochanan, the Mishnah doesn't make any sense. Da'aminan hashlama midirabanan leka. He said there's no din of hashlama, no din to complete and fast a full day midirabanan. The tema masnisin that we could say the same way as Rav Huna Rav Nachman. And the 2 or 3, the 1 and 2, that's going to be Chayla and Bari. Rav Chisda. So basically we have an issue according to Rav Yochanan, and what does Rav Yochanan answer? 1 second, a little bit of a highlighting issue. Here we go. 2 lines into the wide lines. Loi titni lifnei shana demash shlatayim lifnei shlatayim demash mekimul shanim. Elaim amechanchi noisa shana samach lepirka b'chayla ushtayim lebari. Says the Gemara on the first wide line. Tashema. Now we're going to flip and have a question on Rav Huna and Rav Nachman. Tashma Dani Rabbi Shmuel Tinoikais Ein Man Noisab Yom Kippur Ramachan Noisab Shana Shanatayim Samach Lepirkon Beish Sam Rabbi Yochanan Nicha. According to Rabbi Yochanan now fits very good because he can explain that what he's referring to a year before they become an adult for a chayla, a 12-year-old, a year before, 2 years before, when they become for a bari. El Rav Huna Rav Nachman Gasha. According to Rav Huna Rav Nachman, who say that how long do you train here? How long is the training period? If it's even a chayla is 3 years, so how does it fit? What does it mean by chinuch? It means that middle level Rav Huna Rav Nachman will learn, which is completing mikar lechinuch hashlama v'tanya. How can you say chinuch means to complete? But we learned izeh chinuch ayu ragel echol b'shtei shayis machlinois al shalosh b'shalosh machlinois ba'arba. What is chinuch? Fundamental, says the Gemara. Chinuch is to do a little bit more. If you normally eat at the 3rd hour, eat at the 4th at the 5th, the 5th at the 6th. You push a little harder. Chinuch is to show with Yom Kippur, and you got to push yourself. These different types of chinuch. One is going to be the chinuch part of the day, and that's going to be how we're going to learn up this brisa. Says the Mishnah, now we get into the very famous sugya of when could a chayla mesukah and a chayla sheyish b'sakana eat on Yom Kippur. Says the Mishnah, we're on the bottom quarter of Pei Zamid Aleph. Oh, bro, we have a pregnant woman. She smells food. She gets a waft of that beautiful, luscious food. And what happens? And she has a craving. It's a craving, a very unique and extreme type of craving that she feels like she's going to, God forbid, die. She's like, you feed her, give her that food. She has to calm herself down, and then she'll be okay. Similarly, says the Mishnah, if there's a chayla sheyesh v'sakana, a deathly ill person, we feed them al pi b'kiyim based on what a doctor says. We'll see more about that in a moment. Whatever the chayla itself says, ad sheyomer die, until the chayla it says, die, it is enough, I ate enough. So again, we're going to have very unique and important halachas of when can a chayla eat, how we evaluate the chayla, the baki, the right for the doctor, the experts, etc. When if the chayla, the sick person themselves says they need to eat, let's get to it. It says, the Heilige Gemara, Tanu Rabbanon, Obra Sheiricha Basar Kodesh. We have a pregnant woman that smells meat of a carbon, oy basar chazir, or treif meat, toichvin loy kush, and they smell this meat, and this is a similar concept that based on the smell, they have this unique craving, and they need this food. The problem is it's kachim. The problem is it's treif. They're not allowed to eat treif, says the Gemara, but the person's gonna die. What are you gonna do? Says the Gemara, you do. If you stick a straw, you stick a stick into the sauce, manichla alpiyan, give her a little taste of the sauce. In this yashva dait, if she comes down, mutav. Give her this juice itself. Give her the gravy of that big fat pork. Then this yasha daitin, if she comes down, mutav givaldik. Vim lav machilin oisai shuman atzma. You give them the fat. She'ein l'chadavar oimid b'vnei b'kuach nefesh. Famous line, nothing stands in the way of human life. We value life more than anything else in this world. And therefore, even any Avera in the world, what takes precedence? Human life. You live by the Torah. The Torah is not meant for you to die. But of course, with the most important caveat of the three, says the Gemara, Chutz. The three cardinal averas, how time appropriate, as we know, the three cardinal averas, the Beis Hamikdash Rishon, as we're heading towards Tisha B'Av, the Beis Hamikdash Rishon was destroyed for the three cardinal averas. Says the Gemara, these are the three averas that even at life, even at gunpoint, someone holds a gun to your head and tells you got to be over and Gilerai Shichas Tamim or Avodah Zarah. You got to take the bullet. What's the simplest explanation? We're about to see Psukim right now. We mentioned this Pshat, we saw this Gemara prior, I believe in Gemara Eruvin, that the simplest explanation is these Averas are so terrible, so against God, that it's not even worth living. It's not worth living if you have to bow down to an idol. So what do? You take the bullet and you don't bow down to another God. But now the Gemara is going to prove it from Psukim. That was a bit of a svara. Now says the Gemara, but in the time, we learned in our Brayis in Nemar, if the Torah would have said, B'chol nafshecha, you got to serve Hashem with your entire soul, your entire life. Lomar never b'chol ma'odecha. Why does it say with all your money? Then never b'chol ma'odecha. Lomar never b'chol nafshecha. Why does it say with your whole life? There's some people, and that's the normal thing, that your life is worth more than money. Serve God to your entire life. But if there's a person, a unique and crazy individual, that his money is more important than his body, you got to serve with all your assets. This as well shows that nothing takes precedence. But aside for idol worship, of course, and therefore, if there was an option of serving an idol, you'd have to take the bullet. Gilei Arayis number 2, Ushvichas Dam number 3. Where do we know that from? The Tanya we learned in our Brayso. Rabbi Omer says, Rabbi Kigasher Yakim Ishal Rei, when a person stands on his friend Barotz Chai Nefesh Kina Davar Azez, so too will be this matter. What's it teaching us? It's equating a Murutzach, someone who's getting killed, to an Ayr Murasa, someone who's chasing after another person to force them to have relations. What does it teach me? It's coming to teach, and we learn from it. If someone is chasing after a betrothed girl in order to force to have relations, you let to kill that person. So too, a murderer, you kill them first. You have to get killed and you can't transgress the terrible avera of murder. If someone gives you a gun and says, shoot that person or I'll shoot you, you got to take the bullet. Says the Gemara, okay, so we had Nayar Marasa. We learned Nayar Marasa from Roiseach. And we learned that just like by Roiseach, if someone's about to commit murder, you kill them first. And therefore we see that you have to take the bullet and not kill someone else. Says the Gemara, I don't know if I just said that appropriate. Let me say that better. If someone's going to kill you, you kill them first. Says the Gemara, we learned Nayar Marasa from there. We learned now that if someone is going to chase after a person to sleep with them, you kill them first. Says the Gemara, so what do we see? We see that these are the three cardinal averas that you give up your life, and you don't be over these terrible averas. But says the Gemara, everything came from Roitzeach, from murder. Where do we know Roitzeach itself? That you have to give up your life and not commit murder, says the Gemara. Svarahu, it's a pasik. Svarahu, it's a logic. Daud does like I made the Rava, someone came in front of Rava, Amr Li, and this person said to Rava, they telling me we're having highlight issues today. Apologize. One more time. Amr Li, they said to Rava Amr Li, they're saying to me, Mari, Turei Katla Leblanya, kill this person, Viloi, Katlin. They gave me a gun and they said, shoot Ruvain, or we're going to shoot you. Rava, Rebbe, what should I do? Amar Le, Rava famously answers, Nikat l'cha v'loi tiktil, tilach. Let them kill you, v'loy till you should not kill. My chazis, they dumach, the dach svei mitu sumach tvei. How do you know your blood is redder? Dilma dama dahu gavar sumak tvei. Basically, he says, Rava, it's impossible to weigh human life, and therefore you have no way of saying, I will take life into my hands. And therefore they say, kill him or we're going to kill you. You got to give up your life, or who's to say which life is more valuable? The very famous drasha we learn out that Reitzeach is something that you have to even give up your life for. Says the Gemara, now we begin a bit of a story back into the Mishnah of the pregnant woman with the craving needing tea food. Says the Gemara smack in the middle of Pebizim and Beis. There was a pregnant woman, the Orcha, that she smelled food and she's having a craving and she needs to eat it. Also, like they came to Rabbi Amarlu, go whisper in her ear, the Yoma the Kippur, tell her it's in Kippur. And what happened? And she subsided, she didn't need to eat the food, and she got a hold of herself. They called about this woman, they said about this woman, a pasuk where? A pasuk in Yirmiyahu that said, before you were created in the womb, I already knew you, I already knew that you were kadosh, I already knew that you were a holy person. Nafak minei, Rabbi Yechanan. From the fact that this woman was able to grab a hold of herself, it showed that the fetus inside of her, the item that was causing the craving, was obviously something holy and spiritual, if it was able to grab a hold of itself. And a similar story in the flip side says the Gemara, whoever there was a pregnant woman, again whisper in her ear and tell her, they whispered at the ear and she didn't calm down. Kari Ale, they said about this woman turning over to Begimel and Beis, and with this we're going to conclude. Zayru Rishayim Meirachem. Now we quoted a pasuk in Tehillim Meirachem that this the wicked person, come from the womb, and Nafik Minei Shabtai Otzar Peri. They came from her, a person named Shabtai who used to grab all the produce, a bit of a terrible person. Of course, there's no way for one to control their uber, control the fetus, but we see over here the unique power that it has, even when it's inside the body. The woman that was able to be controlled by telling her to Yom Kippur, the woman from that. We'll pick up